Well, good afternoon, everybody. Obviously, we just heard Governor Minner's State of the State address. I would probably characterize it as an excellent overview of her last 7 years in government, but quite frankly, I was significantly disappointed in the lack of substance in the speech. I guess I was looking more forward to hearing more of what the initiatives are going to be for the next legislative session, especially in the light that we have fiscal issues, we have issues that have to do with health care. Certainly coming off the DPC hearings, I was hoping to hear some comments of what would be proposed to try to keep those problems under control and more importantly fixed. And we heard very little of anything as it relates to initiatives. On the fiscal area, I think we're getting ready to go into a situation in which we're going to be required to find solutions to fund both the general fund, which is the bill that JFC will do, and the capital fund, which is the bond bill committee is going to work on at the end of June. As you know, last year we had a situation in which we approved fees to be increased that haven't been increased since in some cases the early 1960s and mid 1960s, and a tax on cigarettes. And basically that's what funded part of the capital budget as well as part of the operating budget. And although we have not taken a caucus position on this in the House, I will almost guarantee you that that is not going to be the posture of the Republican caucus this year. Our expectation, and we look forward to a budget that the governor is going to present here within the next couple weeks that will reflect a balanced budget based on what the projected revenues are going to be. And I think we are prepared to take a position, our caucus, within the next week or so, that we are going to neither accept tax increases or support tax increases as a method of funding budgets. We want to encourage the governor to go in and balance her budget based on what the projected revenues are and keep growth at a minimum. And that's the kinds of things that I was hoping to hear her talk about. On the health care front, as you know, small businesses are struggling with health care and providing health care to their employees. And we have a number of people that are uninsured and who are underinsured in this state. And we heard absolutely nothing on that, which was very disappointing. And then, of course, there's the subject of open government. Again, we heard absolutely nothing on open government. The House chamber, as you well know, have passed 6 bills that we've sent over to the Senate last year, and there's been absolutely no action on that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there's 5 other open government, good government bills that have been introduced in the Senate, and there's 11 bills sitting there. And obviously, the governor had a lot of material to talk about today as it relates to good government and open government. And we had an opportunity to sit there for 40 minutes or so and heard absolutely nothing on that. So from those 3 perspectives, I was very disappointed, and we have no understanding of how the governor is going to approach those 3 important and significant issues in the upcoming legislative session. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Senator Copeland to give the Senate Republican caucus perspective of what he heard.
Thank you, Representative Cathcart. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I appreciate the opportunity to get up here and give really a Republican rebuttal to what we heard today. What I expected when I went into the chamber was that I was going to hear the state of Delaware. What I heard was the state of avoidance. None of the issues that face the state today in any significant degree were addressed. there were little chippies and recollections and a walk down memory lane. We have serious problems facing the state, and they were, if addressed at all, under-addressed. Representative Cathcart mentioned open government. The 5 transparency bills that we introduced just before Christmas, many of those affect the executive branch and can allow a level of transparency the citizens of Delaware to know what we're spending our money on and where we're spending it. That oversight, I believe, would help us with the budget problem that we now face. And let me be honest, we face a huge budget problem. If revenues are expected to grow from the last DFAC numbers at about 3% a year, and expenses are expected to grow at 5, 6, 7% a year, something's got to close that gap. And nothing in that speech told me what her intents were to do that. We heard a little bit about the wonderful jobs that our schools are doing. And 2015 was specifically mentioned, Vision 2015. Let's be honest, Vision 2015 was a private sector initiative. It was not a government initiative. It came directly out of the private sector. And Vision 2015 says in their initial document that an objective review of all the data for Delaware schools says that we rank somewhere in the 30s. Somewhere in the 30s out of 50 states. Now, I could look at SAT scores that are down in the low 40s, and we can look at the neat results from one year for grades 4 and 8 and say, oh, we're doing better than other states. But the long and the short of it is that we're not doing all that well. And the schools that are doing well, many of them charter schools. We heard about some of the improvements in minority and the closing of the achievement gap. A lot of those are because we have charter schools that are focused on that effort. We have charter schools that are ranked in the top 100 schools in the country. And yet this administration and a lot of their allies have, in my opinion, declared war on charter schools. We're not going to give them access to low-cost financing. That's just wrong. And she had an opportunity to say education is important and we're going to move forward with education. We've underfunded school construction because of the budget problems. No accent, nothing said about how we're going to get back on track to actually fund the schools that are now in the pipeline. There was talk about that we went from, I believe it was 47th to 2nd in high-tech and biotech startup jobs. I haven't seen that report. And to quote a leading presidential candidate, I think I'm going to have to suspend disbelief to believe that. Because you look at the month-to-month numbers in jobs in the state of Delaware, and if we had this huge boom in high-tech and biotech startup, you'd see it. Where is it? I don't see these jobs. I don't see it in the gross receipts numbers. I don't see it in the corporate income tax numbers. I don't see it in the employment numbers. So we could point to some report from some entity, but let's not cheer. Let's check the score. So I think that there are some opportunities out there, and I believe, frankly, that there's some activity and potential from this General Assembly to make some progress. I agree with Representative Cathcart. First thing we ought to look at is where is the fat in this government? And we know it's there. Last year when we looked at it, a flexible hiring freeze could have brought in $100 million. We ought to look at that before we do anything else. Last year, a resolution was introduced to look at Medicaid. Medicaid has been growing at 15% a year. It's about 1/3 of the budget. And the governor mentioned, oh, we've got some ideas about Medicaid. Well, it's been growing 15% a year. What are those ideas? And let's put them on the table and let's get going, because they're going to hit our budget. We talked about transparency. We talked about economic development. I think there are a lot of opportunities. I was very disappointed that basically we did not have a state of the state of Delaware and a vision for the future of Delaware. What we had was a state of avoidance and a walk down memory lane. And that's just very disappointing in a state that is facing very, very large problems at the moment. Right now, I think I'll turn it over to Senator Sorensen, who also wanted to comment.